Hello, friends. I wanted to take a few minutes today to share something a little bit more personal with you. As many of you know, I have been for nearly the past year the interim pastor at my church, Crievewood Baptist Church in Nashville, Tennessee. And that season has come to an end. We have a new pastor who I'm really excited about. And honestly, the timing of this could not have been better for me. And I'll share a little bit more about that later in the video because there are some exciting things ahead. But I wanted to just share a few minutes and reflect about my time this past year as the interim pastor and express some gratitude to the church and to all of you. So about a year ago, I was really wrestling through the decision whether or not to leave my role as one of the campus ministers at Belmont University. And so naturally, I sat down with my pastor to have coffee and I started sharing about this, and he was giving me all this wisdom. And then he said, after about 30 minutes of listening to me and kind of helping me think through some things, he's like, I actually need to talk to you about something. And he shared with me that he was not only moving to Texas to be the new lead pastor at a church there, but also that he had told our church's leadership council that he thought that I should be our interim pastor. And so not what I was expecting, was not on my bingo card for last year, but great conversation with him. I prayed about that. I met with some leaders of the church, and Becca and I really decided that we thought this was what God was calling us into. So I did. I left Belmont. I kind of made that decision independently, and then I stepped into this role as the interim pastor at our church last August, and it's been an incredible season. Yes, many of you have asked me this, and very quickly I started thinking, hey, is this what God's calling me to be? Should I be the next lead pastor of our church? And I started thinking and praying about that, and I met with the pastor search committee a couple different times, and here's what happened. As I began to think about that, to pray about that, to seek wise counsel, I really felt God saying to me, hey, Tim, I don't want you to stop creating YouTube videos and writing books and this podcast. We were developing the podcast as all this was happening. He's like, I think he really was telling me, I want you to keep pursuing all of this. And so when I was talking to our church leaders, I was saying, is there a way for me to stay involved with the church, but to do all of this? And the more I started thinking about it, I just kind of felt like, I think our church needs someone who wants to go all in for this next season of the church. And I don't think that's me, because I have so many other things on my plate that I really think God is blessing. And so I had a really honest conversation with them. I did not throw my hat into the ring, so to speak, to be the next pastor. But then I just was able to say, okay, this is an interim season. And my goal was really, really quite simple. One, to be a stable presence for our church as far as leadership and to kind of just help us continue forward, and to preach the word, just to preach good sermons and to bless people. And somebody asked me recently, what are you thinking about as you leave this? What are you feeling? And I said, well, I'm feeling humility, because it's a lot of work, and I know now probably more better than I ever have about the actual hard work that goes into being a pastor and preaching every week and leading a congregation, and sensing that you can't really make anything happen. I shared with our church, it's God who brings the growth. All we are called to do is be faithful servants. And so there's a sense of humility there, we have grown and some good things have happened. But there's also a sense of pride, not arrogant pride, but just I am proud of the fact that we led the church through the season. I say we because I'm talking about Becca, was right there beside me, and that I was able to finish my sermons every week, and that people really seemed blessed by it, and that the church actually grew numerically while we were in this interim season, which is not super common. So there's things that I'm proud about, just kind of doing that hard work. So it's been a really cool season, and I'm so grateful for it, and I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned so much about myself in this season, and about what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. I mean, I knew that I loved to preach and to teach, and that's really been cemented in me. That's something I want to pursue and keep doing, and I love doing. But maybe pastoral leadership and leading an entire congregation and leading a staff is not something that I'm totally wired to, and that's okay to learn that along the way. So it's been a really cool season. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited about the future for our church. I do want to say thank you to our church staff, our leadership council, our deacons, all of our committee leaders, because I have been doing this interim role alongside an incredible group of people who love our church and who love Jesus and who really serve well. And there are a small number of people serving all the time, wearing multiple different hats and doing lots of cool stuff. And so I'm just really grateful for our church. I'm really grateful for all of you. Many of you have come along on this journey with me and watched my sermons on the Crievewood YouTube page. And many of you are following my church now on Instagram and Facebook and encouraging me along the way there. So I appreciate you for being a part of this with me. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm so grateful to my wife. Becca has been, in two ways, she's been supportive in this season. One, like the quiet behind the scenes help and support. Becca, every decision we've made in this season, everything I've talked about, every sermon, like she's been there with me, kind of just going through it with me. And I'm running ideas by her, and she's giving me advice and wisdom. But also, she's stepped up in very upfront ways in our church. She's led more worship because I haven't been leading worship. She's gotten involved with hospitality and greeting and things like that. She's really done a lot to support and love our church. And she's not getting the paycheck, and she's not getting all of the upfront accolades like I sometimes get when people are recognizing me. But I'm really, really grateful for Becca's support along this season as well. So what's next for our church is we have a new pastor. His name is Dr. Chris Dolberry. He's an incredible guy who's going to bring a ton of energy and enthusiasm to our church. I've known Chris for many years. He was actually himself, he was the interim pastor at a church right down the street from my house where my parents were church members for a long time. And so I would sometimes go to church with my parents, and I got to hear Chris preach and got to know him. And then a few years ago, his oldest son was in one of my classes at Belmont. I was doing that Understanding the Bible class. And so Chris reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think my son's in your class." So we've been acquaintances for a long time, and he started texting me earlier this year when he began praying about this job opening at Crievewood. And I was like, I remember saying to Becca after I talked to Chris one time for like a long time, like an hour on the phone, man, if this guy wants to be our pastor, I could get really excited about this. And that's the way that it turned out. So Chris is our new pastor. We are not going anywhere. We're still going to be involved in worship leading. Chris already has me on the preaching schedule for this summer, so we're going to stay there and be members of the church and support Chris and his wife, Vanessa. And I think that the best is yet to come for our church. I'm really excited to see where it goes. So if you've been following along, keep following along. Listen to Chris's sermons. He's a great guy, and support us from afar. But you can definitely be praying for our church in this season because it's transition, there's change. And my last couple of weeks of preaching, I really tried to help our church think through that. Like, what are the core things? The mission of our church has not changed. The foundation of our church, Jesus Christ, has not changed. But there are other things that are going to change because there's a new season of leadership, and we're going to navigate that together. So yeah, it was a really special season for me. I'm really excited about what's next. And as I mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the video, the timing of this could not be better. So some things started happening in my world earlier this year in terms of what I'm going to do next as a writer and a content creator. And I actually reached out to our church, our pastor search committee, and I said, this was a few weeks ago, probably early April. I said, "Hey, I'm going to start mapping out my summer preaching schedule unless you don't think I'm going to need to do that." And they actually called me and said, "Yeah, well, we think we have somebody. We're really close." And I said, "Is it Chris?" And they said, "Yeah, it is Chris." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really exciting to hear about that." And so that same week, the same week that I kind of got the news that Chris was going to be our next pastor, I also got some really exciting news in my life as a writer and a content creator. And I'm going to share all about that with you next week in another video on my channel. Becca is going to join me. We're going to share some, honestly, the most exciting news of this last 6 years since I created this YouTube channel and started working on all this. But yes, I am under contract for some new writing. As I'm recording this, I have already started writing my next book, and I am really excited about it. But there's even more than that. There's some changes coming to the channel. There's some other exciting stuff going on, and so I wanted this video to be about this season at Crievewood, reflecting on that and expressing some gratitude to all of you who've been a part of it with me. And then next week, we'll have, I know 2 weeks in a row of announcement videos is not ideal, but we're going to have another announcement video next week with Becca where we're going to share more about the exciting things that have been happening kind of behind the scenes for the last few months and what that means moving forward. So I'm really excited. But again, the timing could not be better. I'm stoked about this. I am grateful. I'm gonna get emotional. I am so grateful for this season at our church and the ability and the way that God kind of orchestrated everything. God's timing is so perfect and sovereign, and the way that it worked from the transition from Belmont to Crievewood, and now this next transition that's happening, and Pastor Chris coming in. I'm just really, really grateful for God's grace and kindness in my life, and for this incredible season that we've been in. It's been an absolute gift. So thank you again for your love and support. Thanks for praying for my church. Thanks for everything along the way. It's going to be really, really awesome. So stay tuned. Next week we'll have some more exciting news to share with you. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next time.